Hello and welcome to part 2 of the Sonic the Hedgehog Let's Play for Sega Game Gear and Genesis. And we're in probably the most notorious level in the game. And it's even more of a drag in the Game Gear version because it's ridiculously slow. So, Sonic the Hedgehog cannot swim. And so, he can only do these weary trudges through water, because, physics and whatnot. And if you stay underwater for too long, you will drown. However, as you can see, the timer, it's not the most accurate thing. Right now I'm standing beside a cluster of bubbles, and you're supposed to use bubbles in order to gain air to continue through the level without drowning. And in all of the, in all the 16-bit games, there's this little theme that plays whenever you're about to drown. But it's not in any of the 8-bit games aside from Sonic Pocket Adventure, which is pretty disappointing. But as you can see, I move much slower, and I'm also much floatier. So, the momentum is all wrong, and we are confined to a time limit. Although, once again, it's not exactly the most accurate time limit. Something that I find about the Game Gear version of Sonic 1 is that there's really not that many bubbles, because they take way too long to emerge in the Game Gear version, whereas in the Genesis version, they're relatively quick, not drastically, they're not going to be instant or anything. But in the Genesis version, they at least appear fast enough to where you don't really have to panic or anything. But in the Game Gear version, I don't know. So, press this switch at the end of the level, and we're already at the goalpost. It may be slower, but it's not exactly that challenging. Sonic the Hedgehog for Game Gear is not a very challenging game in general. And as we can see, we're closer towards the end of the game, and so the map system has zoomed in much closer so that, we now see deliberately... Oh! That's something that you want to keep an eye on right there. So there's this scripted waterfall, and if you try to jump off it, the physics are wonky, and you have to time it very carefully because it'll fling you upwards. So you want to make sure that you time that jump carefully, otherwise you'll be flinging yourselves into spikes, and if you don't have rings, you'll die. That badnik that I just destroyed is known as a burrow bot, and it has an interesting counterpart in Sonic 2, but we'll elaborate once we're at Sonic 2. So, this pathway to the left only leads to a life, and I tried to roll into it, but unfortunately, I didn't have enough momentum. Then when I tried jumping over it, obviously there's spikes and I lost my shield. Well, very, very finicky. And once again, you really want to be careful with your rings here because of all of those different traps and whatnot, because if you're too slow, you can easily jump into one of those spears popping out of the ground, and since you can't really pick up your rings, once the water, allows you to restabilize and you get moving again, it's really easy to jump into it again and get yourself killed, so you want to make sure you avoid that. And the Chaos Emerald is at the end of Act 2. It's probably the most easy to find Chaos Emerald in the entire game. But you can't possibly miss it. But once again, I'm drowning and the timer is not remotely accurate. If it appeared a little later, then yeah, it would be more accurate. But it appears like it's supposed to be a 5-second countdown, but it appears like 20 seconds ahead or something? I don't know. Like 10, 15. But those dragon statue things, I'll elaborate more on them later, but yeah, that was the 4th Chaos Emerald. I really don't know how you could miss that one since it's right in front of you. That one in the bridge zone Chaos Emeralds are so in your face that I don't know how you could possibly miss them. So, now we are at the boss act, and I actually did die, a couple times, fighting this one, but because of editing, you don't get to see that. So, Eggman returns in what appears to be the Bridge Zone boss all over again, except now he has missiles, and it's centered underwater, and even though the entire level is underwater, you don't have to worry about drowning. Okay, then. And since we're on these... the problem is, it's really easy to be impatient and jump into him as he's firing the missile. Or it's possible to misjudge your jump and then end up falling into the pit. It's relatively easy to die on that boss. And now we are at Dr. Eggman's Fortress, Scrap Brain Zone. And this is like Green Hill and Labyrinth Zone, this is an area that appears in both versions of the game. It's Dr. Eggman's Fortress, so that's to be expected. And there's a lot of traps and different conveyor belt mechanics. Those electric pillars that, if you get too close, will zap you. There's fire on the ceilings, but if you're just running, it's never gonna hit you in most cases. And I don't get it, but okay. I don't know why they didn't program it to go lower, but really short level. Yeah. Act 1 of Dr. Eggman's Fortress can be beaten in 40 seconds. How about that? This is not a very challenging game. Act 2, however, is much more complicated. This is not your typical, hold right and jump a few times levels. There's actually a bit of a maze aspect to this one. So, what you want to do is, of course, maneuver your way up through the different conveyor belts until you're at the top. And You want to dodge all of those different flame pillars and whatnot. But eventually, we're going to come across a junction, and you're going to want to go up, not down. And you'll want to continue following the pathway. And there's 2 more flames that you want to dodge over bottomless pits, but the 3rd one is actually the correct pathway. And you're not going to know that unless you've either played the game before or watched some other Let's Play of it. You know, because you have no reason to suspect that the 3rd one isn't a bottomless pit, but the other 2 are. You want to hit that switch, and then you're going to backtrack to where the junction is, and now take the lower path. And I kind of like that maze aspect. The level isn't too complicated, but at the same time, it's not just straightforward and jump a few times like so many other levels kind of are. Like Green Hill Zone Act 1, for example. But now, of course, roll down with a bunch of momentum. And now we can take the lower path because the door blocking the way that we need to go is no longer sealed. And I did something here that you should not do. You should not actually roll down this hill, because then you'll just get sent into the pit below. So, if you do that, then you gotta backtrack once again, and that's how you get that free man if you want it. I mean, there's really no obligation to. You've had so many opportunities for special stages by this point that you should have more than enough lives and continues. But this setup is very similar in both versions of the game. You're going to find hills that zigzag back and forth with those different robots guarding the path. But navigate your way through the conveyor belts, take this door on the left, keep going up the hall, all the way up to the spring, and once you're past this caterpillar, there's a door at the end of the hall, and we're at the end of the level! I realize this might be another hot take, but I feel like the Scrap Brain theme in the 8-bit version of the game is actually better than the Genesis version. And that actually goes for both Scrap Brain and Labyrinth Zone. I like the themes in there a lot better than their Genesis counterparts. This is another complicated level, just because there's so many doors, and it's really, this level can be genuinely confusing if you don't know where to go. But generally, honestly, it's too complicated to, you know, just say. Just do what I did and you'll be fine. And why? Even Sonic is like, excuse me? Yeah, you don't even get a boss at the end of Scrap Brain. You just see Eggman standing there, and he just somehow outruns you. And welcome to the final zone of the GameGear version, and for some reason Act 1 reuses the Scrap Brain theme. I don't get why, because Act 2 does have a different theme. I don't know why they didn't use it for both acts, but the Act 2 theme is a little repetitive, so... The most dangerous thing that you're going to encounter in this level are those diamond-shaped things that are shooting out all of those electric barriers. You can tell when they're about to go off, and so they're relatively easy to avoid, but it's also easy to get caught in between them when they're more clustered together. So that's something you want to watch out for. And these platforms that I'm jumping on here will only move when you're standing on them. So if you jump, they'll stop, and when you're standing still, they will move, which is helpful when trying to avoid getting zapped. Now for definitely the absolute dumbest Chaos Emerald placement in the entire game. Who would think to go there? Who would think to walk off the... Who would think to walk off the edge of the level and find a platform there? When you're looking down, you can't see it. It's still off screen even when the camera pans slightly. You're really not going to know about that one unless someone else does it. Because... But, like I said before, these platforms will only move when you're standing on them. So, as you can see, there's all of these different turrets floating about. You'll want to take advantage of the fact that they will stop in order to avoid getting hit sometimes. But there we have the final Chaos Emerald, because, like I said before, in the GameGear games, there's only 6 Chaos Emeralds. And the same applies for Sonic 1 on Genesis, but that's just a blanket statement for all of the 8-bit games. And now we are at the end of the level. So, with that, there's nothing left but the final boss and Eggman himself. And frankly, this is probably the easiest final boss in the entire series. But it's the first game, so obviously I'm gonna give it a pass on that. So, what you want to do is continue jumping into the glass container that Eggman is in, and there's fire bursting from the ground, except it always goes in a specific pattern. It's always left, right, middle, left, right, middle. And like that, it's already over. The laser blast that comes from the ceiling isn't that hard to dodge, and Eggman escapes, but he still leaves the device on. Okay. And so now he's flying about Green Hill Zone, and we just pop out of thin air just to spite him. And this would be the end of the game if I didn't get all the Chaos Emeralds, but since I have all the Chaos Emeralds, they are going to ascend into the sky. And just like that, we have rid all of the pollution that Scrap Brain caused. Yay? And now there's just a score bonus for all of the different Chaos Emeralds, as well as just everything else that we've attained up to this point. That's literally all that changes. We don't get any bonus levels or anything like that. So if that mattered to you, well, congrats, you got the best ending of the game. And the credits would play here, however, I'm going to be saving both sets of credits for the final part of this series. This has been Sonic 1 for the Game Gear, but in part 3, we are going to be returning to Green Hill Zone in the Genesis version of Sonic 1. Hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Take care.